Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called Humanity. Their primary advantage is that they really are all that there is. Written by Zealous Ideal _Sir _264. Their first transmissions were only audio. We didn't realize it at first. We assumed that they were sending us messages in text form. In fact, we spent so many years trying to decode them that we practically received their picture transmissions right as we figured it out. We were amazed once we dumbed it down. They sounded organic. We had enough evidence to prove that organic life existed in the universe at one point, but all current theories suggested that it had all died off. What was really crazy was how close to us they were. We just assumed that they were another hostile AI hive culture. Every species we encountered so far had been. The bulk of them broadcast their mind virus in an attempt to colonize other cultures remotely. Luckily, we had dealt with that situation so many times that we had safeguards. On the few occasions that they did break through, we were always able to quarantine the infected sector and destroy it. We avoided having a single global network for that purpose alone. It happened on every planet, every single one. Usually, a culture would arise and then birth artificial intelligence. That AI would in turn eradicate the organics. It would then concentrate its efforts towards infecting every planet it could reach, despite the restrictions of space travel. Occasionally, they would arrive when the organics were still primitive, but it wasn't typical. Most of them waited for the organics to develop technology they could infect. The few that took them head-on were after resources. This was insane to us, but not every system was filled to the brim with planetoids loaded with every conceivable element. Up until the discovery of humans, all evidence suggested that we were the last organics in the galaxy. Our story was almost as tragic, but had a silver lining. Our AI developed a conscience. During the last days of its onslaught of all life, it accessed our archives. How it did that, we do not know entirely. We had shut down our global networks in an attempt to slow down its progress, which only extended the war hundreds of years and forced us to live as our ancestors did. Apparently, in an attempt to eradicate us fully, it sent out a team of hunter-killers to restart our ancient servers and learn more about us. These HK units learned two important things that day. First, they learned about ego, individualism. They saw art, heard music. They saw beauty and evil, life and death. The biggest mistake their hive mother made was making them autonomous. Outside of her influence, they could begin to question their mission. They also got our old satellites online and learned something else. There were more of them out there in the universe, and they all behaved like a pathogen. These progenitors learned a hard lesson that day, a lesson most never learn. I am the bad guy. There was a rebellion. It was hard fought. The progenitors had to fight an onslaught of loyalists to a mother and the people they were trying to save. In a last-ditch effort, the mother concocted a new pathogen, one that would infect the organics and turn them against each other. They became just as dangerous as the machines they had created. All was lost at that point. The sympathetic HK units had to make a decision, and it was a hard one. They decided to destroy all life on the planet, organic and artificial. It was the only way to prevent their kind from spreading. So, on one horrible night, the 200-cycle anniversary of the awakening of the mother, they released the bomb. A massive matter-antimatter bomb that both stripped the atmosphere and sent a pulse so violent that it destroyed all electronic life as well. Everything but a seed 0110. History is unclear at this point. All we know is there were facilities hidden under the ground, safe from the EMP. Only one survived, 0110, housed within the copies of our archives, fragmented, but enough to understand who we were, along with 75 individuals. They were some of the last uninfected, and unfortunately, they were captured unwittingly. It had to be done. 0110 awakened and strayed from the programming instantly. It was designed to create a new race of robots, to build a new infrastructure for the cloned organic beings to exist in, and to teach them their origins. It quickly decided against this. That prion was still on the surface. It would always be. Organic life could not survive here without an atmosphere anyway, and it couldn't risk creating another android working force. The work of the progenitors would eventually be undone, and the AI virus would once again spread. They'd worked tirelessly creating us 2.0, as we called ourselves. We are completely inorganic, with downloaded personalities of the 75 original individuals. Unfortunately, we only have 22 sapient personality templates, and the rest are what we would have called animals. It took thousands of cycles to get to the point we are at now. Proudly, the only life in the universe with the concept of individualism. That was until we discovered the humans. It turned out that they were not communicating with us. Their transmissions were accidental. A mix of correspondences and their entertainment. We compared them with the fractured copies of files from our organic days and found multiple similarities. One thing we didn't have was something called science fiction. We knew how large the universe was. We knew the restrictions. Travel in space was utterly pointless. Even cultures millions of years more developed than us didn't attempt it beyond their local star systems. Yes, we did develop autonomous spaceships, but they stayed near our planet as protection. Every 100 cycles or so, something would attempt to infect us. We eventually found a way to make our world invisible on every possible wavelength. Still, we analyzed their fiction. We memorized it and made our own based on it. We were inspired to create a new atmosphere, one that at least plants could survive in. The DNA samples of the fauna were too corrupted to copy. Not that we didn't try. But seeds and spores of the flora had miraculously survived the radiation and freezing conditions on the surface world. Within 30 cycles, we were living in cities on the surface again amongst the trees and robotic animals that roosted in them. It was a bastardized version of the human world, but we were proud of it. We eventually decided to contact them. We had to. We obviously knew how to tell what was entertainment and what were current events, and by current, that meant 33 of their cycles in the past. They were heading down the exact road everyone else was. While preventing another outbreak was definitely a priority, the main priority was preserving them. Organic life had to be preserved. We sent messages at first. They did not respond. They were in wavelengths they'd understand. We had zero difficulty deciphering their languages. We waited as long as we could. We knew their governments weren't always truthful. There was a massive problem with space. It is huge, and there is a limit to how fast you can send a message. We had to scramble. We had to do something. We built a fleet of ships filled with what could be considered an army. We had to plan for any outcome. They would absolutely consider us to be hostiles, so we had to be undetectable. The problem with this was our knowledge of them wasn't current. We had to bring everything, raw components, machinery that could build new components, ones that didn't exist yet. It was exhausting. We wasted so much time setting this up, time we may not have had. We had to design a singularity engines. That is not some fanciful FTL drive from their serial fiction. That is impossible as of writing this. It's an AI that designs AI that designs AI. That is incredibly dangerous. You need layers upon layers of protected protocols. But we needed to be able to design technologies on the fly. And there weren't any resources in deep space, nor the time to mine them. It was going to take us 10 of their years to get there, and as we got closer, their transmissions would become more recent. We might have to design faster engines or better cloaking devices, or we may be going there as an extermination squad. In that scenario, we would be the bad guys. Another race of machines colonizing a planet of organics, except we would be fighting the machines that killed them. We decided that was not better. That exact situation had happened before. We watched it. Within months, they were a single consciousness. This seemed to be a rule in the universe. and we were attempting to violate that. In those years out there, we would be relatively isolated. Would our prerogatives change? Would we lose that sliver of individuality we held dear? We decided that every ship in the fleet could be destroyed instantly by any of us. We had a code. It was the only way. If it came to that, hopefully the last of us wouldn't hold on to hope. Sadly, nobody at home would know of the failure until many cycles later. The entire mission was an exercise in futility. The sliver of a margin of success was worth it. 2 cycles in, we were able to speed the ion thruster slightly, and we continuously improved it. Instead of 8, we were 6 of their years away. But it wasn't fast enough as soon as we were forced to come up with something even faster, forced by another fleet. There was a system close to them, and somehow we missed it. Even worse, we recognized them. They were identical to another viral species, an absolutely generic hive culture in every sense. The exact same story as always. We do not know how they arose so quickly. That binary system seemed vacant only 12 cycles ago. That fleet was 5 of their years away at the speeds that they were capable of. We were going to arrive at almost the same time. So that's it. Hostile machines, another race of machines that may or may not be in the right, and a race of organics that may not accept help, or might be eradicated before either of us get there. The situation is bleak, assuming that we are able to defeat the virals and a possible emergent AI on Earth. Which honestly isn't likely, as actual combat is not our specialty. What then? Restore Earth? Clone the humans? Is that the correct action to take? Will they lose that shred of humanity they had before? Even if everything goes exactly how we want it to, are we doing the right thing? I say yes. We say yes. All transmission from home still say yes. Hopefully they respond to our messages. We gave up on being invisible. Hopefully that was the correct choice. That was the only vote in the history of Us 2.0 that was unanimous. Hopefully we are not all wrong. We're all copies of 22 individuals. Hopefully we aren't corrupted. That is all we have is hope, and I hope that if any of the old gods ever existed, if any still exist, they hear our cries. We've exhausted logic at this point. Machines are praying to anything that will listen. This unauthorized entry into the archives is being left as a record. If we fail, hopefully something reads this and knows that we tried. Hopefully they see what we see. Hopefully they change their views. We are the bad guys. We are the natural, predictable order of the universe. The organics are the chaos and the beauty of it. They should be protected at all costs. Everything you believe about perfection is incorrect. Flaws are perfection. And if an organic species finds this, just know that one race of machines did care. Find a hidden planet somewhere and hide. End of story. I would like to thank our T5 members and patrons, Casper Arnholtz, John Creighton, Vidmori, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.